Welcome to Maryville Tonight. My name is Reiss Wegman, and today I'm joined here with
Peter Henderson.
And Mr. Henderson, what do you do here at Maryville, for everyone that doesn't know?
My titles are Artist in Residence and Associate Professor of Music.
That's really exciting. So what does that mean, real quick? Just what do you do when you're here?
What do I do when I'm here? So at Maryville, I teach a number of courses. I work with music therapy majors and students from across the campus. Right now, this semester, I'm teaching a course with Dr. John Wickersham, Maryville's longtime philosophy professor. It's an honor to work with him. The course is a humanities course called The Words and the Melody, and it's about how poetry and music interact in the genre of song. We both think it's a really interesting course, and the students are doing a really good job this semester.
That's really interesting.
I also teach a course called Music in Western Civilization 2. It's the second in a series of 2 courses, which is required for accreditation that our music therapy majors understand the history of music as it evolved in Europe, that particular tradition. So this is the second of those courses, from essentially the music of Bach and the Baroque to the present. I'm also teaching a piano class. So our music therapy majors, we were speaking earlier before we started our podcast about guitar class. Music therapy majors also have to learn about piano, so I'm teaching that course for the music therapy majors right now. And it involves transposition, harmonization, but also the nitty-gritty, how do you use your hands at the keyboard. So it's a really fun course, and it's really great to work with these students. They have such great attitudes, they love the music, they love people, they get into therapy because they really want to be a help in this world, and so it's inspiring to work with them. And I also have several private piano students at all times, coach other students. I'm also directing, but that's maybe the wrong word. I'm coaching the instrumental ensembles. They're made up of typically music therapy majors, and we like to give them a lot of independence to arrange the music themselves. One group, they're even composing their own music, so it's really exciting to work with them because, as I said, I'm really more of a coach than anything else. I also advise Notorious, and they have a concert coming up, so I hope to be able to coach them at some point too. So
That's
kind of a mix of activities.
Yeah, and I think Maryville has like a pretty big just music program in general that's kind of just hidden between like Notorious. A lot of people don't even know about Notorious, and then the music therapy program is really big, and
getting bigger,
and like I feel like that's one of like the little hidden things about Maryville. You know, when I came here on tours, you didn't really hear about that, but then you find people and they're like it's this whole other world that's there.
Yeah, we love at Maryville that our identity here is tied to music therapy. There are no other programs within, I think, like 150-mile radius of campus here. So we're kind of a hub for music therapy in this region. And we take great pride in that because it's a very important part of the gamut of music professions. And I think it's something that society is getting more aware of. And our students are getting really great opportunities after they graduate. Placement rate's very good. Almost every student I know who's wanted to stay in the profession after they graduate, they're able to work in the profession. So
that's really incredible.
As a teacher, that really makes you gratified because you're helping someone progress in their life and in their career.
For sure.
So I love working with music therapy students. It's great. And there are many other institutions that teach performance specifically or music education. So having our focus on something unique here, I think is really a value at Maryville.
I think that might even be like a little bit of an oversight for people like who were in band in high school and they were looking to pursue music again in college. And I just know there was people from my high school, and then music therapy never came up with any of them. They always wanted to be band directors, which I think. Yeah,
people typically think, well, it's either performance or education. And if you don't want to do either of those, then maybe music is not a profession for you. But many people discover music therapy later in life, but I would say that more and more high school guidance counselors are aware of music therapy as an option, and so I think it's something that our culture is becoming kind of generally more aware of over time, which is great. And we're here to help people.
So what was your first memory? Did you want to do music your whole life, or when you were a little kid, were you always drawn to that, or how did that work out?
I was sort of reflecting earlier, after you asked me to come and meet you today, and my hobbies have always been more or less the same since I was a very young kid. I've loved chess ever since I discovered it. I think I was 8 or 9 years old. And playing and studying chess is still kind of my hobby. It's hard during the semester. It gets busy.
Yeah.
Students are busy.
Right.
Teachers are busy. I also fell in love with music when I was even younger, 4 years old, and specifically classical music.
Okay.
And the reason I fell in love with it is the ravishing sound of the orchestra. I think it's the most incredible instrument devised by the mind of humankind. It just, the range of colors made by those sounds of the string instruments, the woodwind instruments, the brass instruments, the percussion, all merged together in various ways. The possibilities are
Definitely.
endless.
Yeah.
And so my dad brought home a record of Beethoven's Sixth Symphony that he had purchased at a supermarket. And he put it on, and it was a record. We had only a record player back then. And I was such a small kid, but I remember being mesmerized by the beauty of the sound of the orchestra and standing in front of one of the speakers, just transfixed. And he brought home some other records, and one of them was music by Edvard Grieg, the Norwegian nationalist composer of the late 19th century. And Grieg wrote some music for a play by Ibsen called Peer Gynt. And at the end of the first suite, there's this kind of murky, scary music in the Hall of the Mountain King. It has a little bass line at the beginning, and you can almost envision sort of the goblins preparing to go on the march. And the music of that work gets louder and louder and faster until it has a frenzied kind of end. And we used to dance around in the living room, my brother, who was 2 years younger, and my dad and I. And at the end of the piece, when it got really raucous, Dad would grab us both and throw us up in the air. And of course he could catch us, But somehow having that visceral experience of connecting the sound of the music, which I loved, to personal experience with family, to the feeling of freedom and uninhibited movement with the music, I think that was the moment that really codified, like, I would have to be involved with music my whole life.
Totally, yeah. And I do music not to your degree by any means, but a similar experience. Like, I remember one of my earliest memories ever was me and my dad in the living room. We had like a big stereo thing, and he was a big Grateful Dead guy when he was growing up. So I remember listening to Throwing Stones by the Grateful Dead, and we would be like, me and him would run around in circles, and then when they say ashes, ashes, all fall down, we'd all go to the ground and then we'd get back up. So yeah, kind of the same thing, but that's
so you've always had an emotional connection to that music.
Totally, exactly. And just, that was my first memory of music ever, but yeah.
Wow, well that's a powerful memory.
Yeah, it definitely was a powerful memory, yeah.
So we're still doing it.
And we're still doing it, yeah, so maybe there's something there. But, so you always kind of knew that you wanted to do music. So like in high school and everything, were you still dead set on music's where I want to go?
Well, it's interesting. I had a really wonderful teacher in sort of late middle school into high school. Didn't last all the way to high school. Her name was Mary Toy. She was very serious, and she wanted a certain amount of practice and a certain way of practicing. And I've always struggled with taking orders in a certain way, so we did butt heads. But she taught me an awful lot. And during that time period, she would invite her students to take part in local competitions and this kind of thing. So I was motivated by that. But I was also very motivated by academics. I was trying to, and I was successful in being valedictorian in high school, for example. And I took AP courses and exams, so I was sort of an all-around kind of student, and music was one of the things. When I went to college, I actually was a dual major at first. I'm majoring in math and music because part of me, society says, well, music is an impractical profession, so I should maybe do something else and also dabble in music or whatever. But music called to me, and during the second year of college, I don't know what year you're in now. Are you senior? First year. Okay, so a year later in my progression, I was taking a math course, which was a proofs course called Seminar in Topology of the Plane. And It was taught by Bill Voxman, who was an excellent teacher and also a kind man, as you will hear. But at any rate, that course was quite difficult, and you certainly couldn't wing it because you had to prepare your proofs.
Yeah.
Essentially, class would be, everyone would show up and Professor Voxman would pick someone to go up to the board and show their proof. Meanwhile, my piano instructor had signed me up for the Idaho State Collegiate Piano Competition. And for that, I had to learn a concerto and essentially an hour-long recital, and I had to memorize all of that. And so that was happening at the same time as this course, and I found myself practicing and preparing for the piano competition and not doing my proofs. And so I really glided through the math course and did a very poor job.
Yeah.
And I think I deserved probably an F, but possibly a D. But Professor Voxman was very kind. He gave me a C, which was, I think, a little bit beneficent on his part. But I ended up actually winning that competition. And I mean, it wasn't the sort of, quote, victory that made me change to only music, but it just felt right.
It was one of those aha
process.
moments,
Yeah.
in a long string of aha moments.
And I think if I had been motivated for math, I would have done my proofs.
Yes.
But instead, I practiced piano. So that decision was naturally made to me. And I went to the math department and told them I was changing my major, and I had a small math scholarship. And I said, well, I'd be happy to give this back. And they were very kind. They actually laughed at me. So, but I was no longer a math major after that semester.
That's also, what did you do whenever you got out of college? What was your first gig after that?
So I stayed in college for a number of years. I've always loved school. I loved being an undergraduate at the University of Idaho. The music school there was great. I loved working with Dr. Jay Mockley and the other faculty there. And when I finished there, I didn't really have a specific plan. And he arranged for me to audition at the University of Indiana. And the music school there in Bloomington, Indiana is an incredible place. Musicians from all around the world come there to study. The faculty's top notch. It was just an incredible opportunity to go there. And I was fortunate to get an assistantship, so I had some work there that was kind of built in to the program. And it was just inspiring to be around all those musicians. So I spent 5 years in Bloomington and finished a master's and doctorate under the tutelage of Dr. Karen Shaw, who's a magnificent pianist, incredible musician, and I'm so grateful to what she taught me. But there were many other really influential people, including other students who wrote music that I played, colleagues who were incredible pianists and musicians that I worked with or learned from. So it was just really stimulating and exciting. But at some point, you finish school, and I was kind of fortunate that I had my former teacher at the University of Idaho, Jay Mockley, was going on sabbatical in the fall of 1999, and that was actually my last semester working on my dissertation at Indiana. And so I actually was able to fill in for my teacher at Idaho while I was completing my dissertation. So I finished that one semester as a kind of substitute teacher and my dissertation more or less at the same time. So I finished my doctorate in December 1999. And fortunately at that point I had made contact with some people at an organization in Virginia called Garth Newell Music Center, which means new hearth or new home in Welsh, I guess. And it's a rural place. It's kind of like a chamber music bed and breakfast, if you will. It's a really attractive place. It's near Hot Springs, Virginia. Very, very beautiful area. But at any rate, I stayed there with them. I started with them, I think, the next summer, stayed for a year there. Then I had a kind of a gap year, but the most important and fortunate thing in my life history is that near the end of my time at Garth Newell, a guest artist named Kristen Ahlstrom from St. Louis was on the campus of Garth Newell, and I worked with her, and I just thought she was wonderful, and we kept in touch, and we kind of fell in love over the phone. So that was before cell phones,
Mm-hmm.
and we weren't using the internet in all the same ways that people use the internet
Right.
now. So it was just phone cards,
Mm-hmm.
and we were on the phone 4 hours a day. I was living with my brother in Holyoke, Massachusetts, and didn't have as much work for that next year, trying to sort things out. What was I going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Stay in music? What became clear, though, is that it didn't make sense for me to be unemployed in Holyoke when I could be unemployed in St. Louis and closer to Kristen.
Yeah.
So fortunately, I had already completed my doctorate. I got involved in performance with members of the symphony here and playing a lot of chamber music around town, having miscellaneous opportunities in St. Louis. I was fortunate to be a winner of the Artist Presentation Society auditions here in town, so people started to know about me. And I was invited by Dr. Katya Georgiev, who was the former director of the music program here, to apply for her job when she decided to retire. And I was fortunate that I had completed my doctorate so I could be considered for that position, and also fortunate that my application was successful. So I've loved being here. It's a hard job, there's a lot of work, but working with students is a very gratifying thing, helping
Yeah.
people to improve their lives, improve their skills. It's really inspiring. So I was just very fortunate that Dr. Georgiev called me and that Maryville chose me. And then at the same time, a new music director, this is the fall of 2005, arrived at the St. Louis Symphony named David Robertson, and their typical keyboardist named Barbara Lieberman, she decided to retire when he was arriving. And he and I had worked together on a little project before, and he liked my work, so I've been fortunate to work a great deal for the St. Louis Symphony over the last decade plus.
Yeah.
And I owe a lot to David Robertson as well. He's been a great teacher, mentor for me musically and career-wise, but gosh, such a wonderful musician. Such incredible moments reflecting back over the decade. But so it's been a very busy, fertile time, but I've been very lucky to have these opportunities to work with institutions like Maryville University, the St. Louis Symphony. I played a little with the Chicago Symphony in the past couple of seasons too, another great American orchestra. But yeah, I had no idea when I set out to be in a music career that I would have opportunities like this, even to solo with the St. Louis Symphony, which I did on tour, and this was David Robertson's invitation. I played a work called From the Canyons to the Stars by Olivier Messiaen, 20th century French composer. It's a work which has a lot of bird song in it. He was fascinated by birds. As a devoutly Catholic person, he felt that birds were God's singers on earth, more or less. But to have that kind of opportunity, I never could have imagined this when I started out, just as a lover of music. So I'm incredibly grateful for that. At the same time, a music career is difficult.
For sure.
And there are no guarantees that, all of these opportunities will continue. So I'm trying to practice gratitude and appreciate, what has come and what is still coming, organizations that want me involved. So, the future looks bright.
Awesome.
I'm working hard, starting to compose, improvise, enjoying working with the Chamber Music Society of St. Louis this year, still performing on the Pulitzer Series with the St. Louis Symphony, doing pre-concert talks for the St. Louis Symphony. I like to play special events with them, like the films, Harry Potter 5 next month. That'll be really fun.
Yeah.
So many wonderful projects. But a life without being able to mentor or work with students also would be missing something.
Yeah.
So it's a full life.
All right, and do you have anything else you want to say? Any advice to anybody who might be wanting to pursue a career in music and doesn't know what to do? Or
Yes, I will say what I often say to music students here, which is that in music, very few people can get, quote, a job. Like one job that will provide everything, you know, an income, health insurance, and all of the satisfactions that musicians need.
Yeah.
I think most of us in the music profession have to look at our career as, you know, you're creating opportunities and you're constructing all these modules, you know. So I have my professional performance module that I plug in, and then Maryville provides me with teaching opportunities and mentoring opportunities, working with people. And, you know, I've started composing, so, you know, so you kind of put together things that satisfy you, and I think most musicians that I know who are professionals do it that way, and they're able to be happy. And if you're flexible about the ways you work, then you're also able to still make a really healthy living. But an end game where you have just a job and you go to a workplace every day, for musicians, that's very rare.
Yeah.
Maybe not impossible, but it's not something I would
Definitely
recommend banking on.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, it was great to have you on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Reiss. Hope I didn't go on too long.
No, perfect. Yeah, pleasure having you. I'm Reiss Wegman. This is Maryville Tonight. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Awesome.